One of the fundamental concepts that we need to know when building formulas in Excel is absolute referencing. We're going to cover that today. We'll understand why it's important and how to use it effectively. So the first point is consistency. When we're copying cells down between different cells, we want to make sure that if required, we lock in the cell that we're referring to. Another point is efficiency. It's going to save time, but we can reference a particular cell as opposed to having to manually make changes within the different cells when copying formulas all the way down. And one of the concepts that I stress quite often is making sure that our data remains clean. And by doing that, we use formulas or consistent formulas to copy things all the way down. It means there's less manual input, as I mentioned earlier, and we'll have clean data. Okay, enough talking, let's jump into it. If you want to follow along, you can click on the link down below to download the file, and we'll do this together. So the first sheet that we have here is intro. So we've got a couple of columns, or 3 columns specifically. So I'm just going to randomly put in some numbers here. There we go. And I'll do the same thing for, the column right beside it. Now if I want to add up these 2 cells, I can do it multiple ways, but I'll just keep it simple. Let's go equals, because all formulas in Excel start with equal sign. Click on the first cell plus the second cell. Hit enter. Now when I double click, Excel shows me what cells it's referring to. Now, to copy this down, I'm going to take my cursor in the bottom right-hand corner until it turns into a crosshair, click, and just drag it down. Now, when I go to the next row, double click, and Excel knows that I want to add the cells in the row just below, which makes sense. And it continues on, last row, everything checks out. So the whole idea is when you copy a formula down, the referencing of where it's looking at will also move down. Now, this also works when you're moving across columns as well too, not just going from the top down or bottom up. Let's move over to the next tab called Product. All right, within this tab, we have some fictional products here in column A. In column B, we have the price. In columns C, D, and E, they're blank, but this is where we want to use formulas in order to figure out the final prices. In column H, we have the holiday discount percent, and in column I, we have the tax rate. So in column C, we're going to calculate the discount. And it's going to be based off of the information we have right over here. Okay. So if I just build my formula, say equals, I'll take the price of the product multiplied by the percent discount, hit enter. Great. We get our discount in dollars. Now, if I copy this down, entire row, it's not going to give us the dollars discount. And the reason for that is in the first cell, it's clearly referencing the holiday discount percent. But in the cell just below it, it's looking for that percent down 1 row. So this is where we have to lock it in or use absolute referencing because it's the discount percent we want to remain consistent within our formula as we copy it all the way down. Let's do that. So I'm going to press Control Z to undo. There we go. And now let's fix this formula. Equals. Or click on the cell that contains the price multiplied by the percent for the holiday discount. Now, before I hit enter, I'm going to press F4, or in your case, it may be function F4. So function F4, it'll cycle through the different absolute referencing options. So I'm going to press, for actually my computer, it's function F4. So if I press it once, you'll notice it puts a $sign in front of the column reference and the row number, the row reference. If I press it again, it'll put the $sign either in the front of the column or the row, and if I press it again, it'll clear it. So I can cycle through whichever that I need. So I want it back into for both the column and the row, because when I copy it down, I want it to stay put. Now, I don't have to include the column locking, only the row locking, but in this case, I'm going to make it easy. I'm just going to keep it on both because it's the first option with function F4. Great, hit enter, perfect. Now if I copy this down, I'll click on the double left click on the bottom right-hand corner, so it'll copy down the very last row, and now I have my appropriate pricing discounts. Now to figure out the next cell, equals, I'll take the price minus the discount, hit enter, and I can copy that down as well. So equals, we'll take the holiday price, so it's after the discount, and to add the sales tax to it, I'm going to multiply this, open bracket, 1 plus the tax rate, and I'll lock it in with an F4. Perfect. Close bracket. So what this formula is doing is taking the holiday price and then multiplying it by 100%, so the actual price, plus an extra 13% for the taxes. So this will be the final price that the customer pays. And copy it down. Great. Now notice there's a lot of decimal places within the numbers here. I'm going to clean this up. So I'm going to select, in fact, I'll clean up all the data. I'll select all the cells. Then from here, I'll change the style. So right here in the home ribbon, right in the middle, we have different styles. I'll just choose the $, which is the accounting style. There we go. This helps to just clean it up a little bit, gets rid of those extra decimal places that we just don't need. And again, one of the benefits that I mentioned is that within our data set here, it's kept clean and without any kind of redundancy. So if I didn't have absolute references locking in the data in cells I and J, then I would have to add additional columns to the spreadsheet. Let me show you, and you'll see how much messier it starts becoming. To figure out the discount, I would have to insert a new column, so I'm just clicking on the column heading here in C, insert a new column, and we'll call this discount percent. Well, make sure we can see all of it. There we go. And this is 25%. And from this, I would have to copy it all the way down. And then I'd base the calculation from this cell by multiplying this by that to get that discount. So that's the first one. You can see it's already getting a bit crowded. And now I'd have to insert another column for the taxes. So we'll insert a new column and we'll put tax. And that is 13%. Now I would copy, this column or this data all the way down. And then I would use this cell in order to calculate the after-tax price. So you can see, we don't need to add more columns when the data is consistent. We can use referencing from additional cells on the right-hand side of the spreadsheet. So again, another benefit of using absolute referencing where we don't have to add additional data to the rows and columns. Let's get rid of those columns cleaned up a little bit. And this one as well too. There we go, much better. All right, let's move over to the last sheet. What we're gonna do is create a multiplication table. So I'm gonna create a sequence of 25 numbers down the rows and 25 columns. So rather than typing in 1, 2, 3, 4, I'm actually gonna use the sequence formula. Equals sequence, tab, and number of rows, I'm gonna tell it I need 25 rows, comma. Columns, I only need one column. Alternatively, I could have left that blank by just pressing comma again. And now it's asking me for the start. Start at 1, comma, the step is also 1. Close bracket, and there we go. So I've got my sequence between 1 to 25 for the rows. I'll do the same thing across the columns. Equals sequence. Start off with 1 row, and we'll do 25 columns, starting with 1 and step of 1 as well. Close bracket, and there we have it. So now, in order to build this multiplication table, the value here will multiply by the number, your number 1, within this one column by that row, and also within this row by that column. So if I was doing it manually, let's say equals, obviously 1 multiplied by 1. Okay, so if I hit enter, now if I just copy this over, the numbers clearly don't work out. And these hashtags, this just basically means that the number that's within that cell is too large to fit within the width of the cell. There's a couple ways of doing it. The easiest way is to take your cursor between the columns, double click, and it'll auto resize. You can see, again, this is numbers too large. It's not multiplying the way that we want. Okay, so how do we fix that? Well, it's going to be absolute referencing. So when we're doing it, we want this cell, but before I move on to the next argument in the formula, I want to lock it in. Now, what part do I want to lock in? I don't want to lock in both the row number and the column. In this case, I only want to lock in the column. So for that, I'm going to press on my keyboard function F4, so I only see it in front of the column reference. There we go. So now it's equals $A2. Now plus the multiplication. And I'll click on cell B1. And this time, rather than the column, I want the row to lock in. So press function F4 once, and now twice. And now the row is only locked in. Hit enter. Rather than changing each individual cell, I can copy this over. So now, I'll show you if I copy cell down here, again, it looks okay. So I'm just going to select the entire row, copy it all the way down. Now let's double check whether or not our table is correct. Looking over 25, 25, 625, looks good. So this is a classic example using multiplication tables to explain absolute referencing. There's many applications where you can use this effectively when building formulas within your work. Well, thanks for joining me for this quick intro. Please subscribe and like to get notifications of future videos. And I also would encourage you to check out some of the other videos that are a little more advanced in order to accelerate your learning. Thanks, everyone.